Where in India can you go and get diagnosed as an autistic person when you're an adult?
Open to meeting their therapist and answering these questions. And I had that concern. So I discussed it with the person who was diagnosing me, and they provided me with a list of questions that I could ask my parents, and then I could note down their answers and provide.
So autism diagnosis सस्ता तो है ही नहीं. So one question is कि what is the price range one can expect जब जा रहे हैं diagnosis के लिए? On an average, how much money are they likely to spend for the whole process?
A lot of times ना parents को understanding नहीं होती है autism वगैरह की. So then how do you get this money? Like अगर you're an earning professional then sure, but if you're a college student तो कहाँ से आएंगे ये पैसे?
I have had so many eureka moments after my diagnosis. I have become this fierce believer that diagnosis is, if you think that diagnosis is, wow, sigh of relief. Yes, sigh of relief.
Yes,
but
not
so much work is coming your way. Hi, I'm Shayuni. I'm a late diagnosed autistic woman living in India. I'm here to share my experiences and insights of finally accepting who I am as an autistic person.
Hi, I'm Dev Rupa, and today Shayuni and I are at India Autism Center to answer some of your most frequently asked questions about getting an autism diagnosis as an adult in India.
Where in India can you go and get diagnosed as an autistic person when you're an adult?
I got my diagnosis through Action for Autism, which is based in New Delhi, and they do diagnostic sessions online. But I think you can also meet a psychiatrist who can give you your autism diagnosis if you're already seeing somebody, or you need to get it from a therapist who will then refer you to a psychiatrist.
Yes, I went to Action for Autism as well, but I know that there are private psychiatrists and counseling psychologists or neuropsychologists who do this. So, best to check with the mental health professional that you are seeing or you plan to see, and check if they provide this diagnosis. That should be the way to
Ask about neuroaffirming mental health professionals on social media,
Yeah.
and maybe somebody will help you out. So, Shravani, tell me, what kind of questions can one expect from their test?
The questionnaire that I filled up during my diagnosis had questions starting from my childhood to adulthood in various buckets, like, whether I found it easy to socialize with people my age, whether I find it difficult to express my emotions. In all of the questions, on it was an Excel sheet, I had to also provide examples that I could think of, like incidents where I have felt a certain way, if possible, if I can remember them. That was there. A similar questionnaire is also provided to, somebody who's kind of in your immediate environment, who is observing you in that particular time that we are
Like a
talking about.
sibling, a flatmate, or a partner.
Yeah, or a partner. Because like I told them during my diagnosis that my parents may not have seen the actual whatever quirks, but maybe my husband can now must have seen them. So second is, so you answer the one questionnaire, and the person who's living with you and sharing your space answers. And the other questions that you can expect are questions about your developmental stages, which is the first 5 years of your life. Preferably, this has to be answered by someone like a parent or a caregiver who has actually observed you growing up. You will not remember, so you need a third person to come in. These are the kind of questions you can expect.
Yeah, and I think also one concern that people might have is whether their parents or guardians or caregivers would be open to meeting their therapist and answering these questions. And I had that concern. So I discussed it with the person who was diagnosing me, and they provided me with a list of questions that I could ask my parents, and then I could note down their answers and provide.
So this avoids an interaction between
a direct
parents
interaction.
and So autism diagnosis सस्ता तो है ही नहीं. So one question is कि what is the price range one can expect जब जा रहे हैं diagnosis के लिए? On an average, how much money are they likely to spend for the whole process?
I think this price range can differ across time, of course. But I think it should be between 3,000 to 10,000, like whatever prices I have heard have been within this bracket.
And I think again there can be variations in what kind of organization or professional you are
Absolutely.
approaching.
Yeah.
So yes, I think 3 to 10 is the number ballpark that you
Yeah.
can have.
So, Shawnee, a lot of times ना पेरेंट्स को अंडरस्टैंडिंग नहीं होती है ऑटिज्म वगैरह की. सो देन हाउ डू यू गेट दिस मनी? लाइक अगर यू आर एन अर्निंग प्रोफेशनल देन श्योर, बट इफ यू आर अ कॉलेज स्टूडेंट तो कहाँ से आएंगे ये पैसे?
Um, First, I would say that even as a earning professional, इसके लिए जो जितना भी अमाउंट है वो शायद इकट्ठा करना सबके बस की बात नहीं
True.
है. तो अगर ऐसा है, इफ़ यू आर अ कॉलेज स्टूडेंट एंड आपको रियली ये डायग्नोसिस चाहिए लेकिन आपके पास पैसे नहीं और आप अपने पेरेंट्स से बात नहीं कर सकते हैं, पहली बात तो आप जहाँ से डायग्नोसिस लेने का सोच रहे हैं, चेक विद देम, क्योंकि समटाइम्स पीपल हैव स्लाइडिंग स्केल्स. यू नो, सिंस यू आर अ स्टूडेंट यू मे नॉट हैव टू पे द रेट दैट अ अर्निंग प्रोफेशनल इज पेइंग, क्योंकि लेट्स ऑल्सो बी ऑनेस्ट दैट दीज प्रोफेशनल्स आर ऑल्सो अवेयर ऑफ द ग्राउंड रियलिटी दैट दिस इज एन एक्सपेंसिव टेस्ट और सबके बस की बात नहीं है.
एब्सोल्युटली.
तो ये नंबर वन ऑप्शन है दैट
हाँ.
यू शुड वन कैन एक्सप्लोर. सेकेंड इज कि से कि इतना ही लगेगा इसमें, दिस इज द फाइनल नंबर दैट यू हैव बीन गिवन. You can either have a, see if you can do some freelance assignments on the side, some side hustle, something that is not, that doesn't disrupt your whatever other commitments you have as a student, to earn that money. Or what I did, even though when I got my diagnosis I was an earning professional, but the amount was not something that I could afford. I started a saving goal exclusively for diagnosis. तो मैं हर महीने 1,000 रुपए सेव करते करते आई रीच द नंबर जब मेरे पास वैसे इकट्ठे हो गए कि अब मैं जा सकती हूँ डायग्नोसिस के लिए.
हाँ, एंड यू नो टू ऐड टू योर पॉइंट, आई थिंक खुद को इतना वक्त देना कि यू आर एबल टू कलेक्ट दैट अमाउंट, इट ऑल्सो गिव्स यू मोर टाइम टू रिसर्च ऑन ऑटिज्म एंड इट्स सिम्टम्स एंड अंडरस्टैंड हाउ इट मैनिफेस्ट्स फॉर यू. सो व्हेन यू फाइनली गो सी योर प्रोफेशनल, इट वोंट बी अ वेस्ट ऑफ योर मनी बिकॉज यू विल बी एबल टू मेक अ बेटर केस फॉर योर सेल्फ बिकॉज तुम्हें पता होगा तुम्हारे साथ क्या चल रहा है. सो ऑल्सो यूज दैट टाइम to understand yourself better and understand how it
look at
impacts
it
your
as
life.
an investment in yourself only.
Yeah.
कि आप पैसे इकट्ठा नहीं कर रहे हो, आप खुद को भी प्रिपेयर कर रहे हो
हाँ,
डायग्नोसिस.
बिल्कुल.
तो एक हेजिटेशन रहता है कि प्रोफेशनल के पास जाएंगे, उनसे बात करेंगे, वो ये सब क्वेश्चनर देंगे. तो अगर ये रूट किसी को नहीं लेना है और अगर खुद ही को डायग्नोस करना है सेल्फ डायग्नोसिस के तौर पे कि क्या क्या मैं स्पेक्ट्रम पे हूँ, तो हाउ डू दे go about it?
I would suggest reading other autistic people's lived experiences. Preferably, अगर आप Indian हैं, तो Indian autistic लोगों के lived experiences पढ़िए. It'll be difficult to come across it, but you will still find them online. Because research has shown that the way autism manifests can differ across gender and across cultures. So that would be the most helpful. And also, I would say Reddit पे जाइए. वहाँ क्योंकि anonymously लोग बात कर सकते हैं. You will find a bunch of subreddits: autism in women, autism translated, autism, ADHD in women, ADHD because these conditions often co-occur together. तो वहाँ से आप information इकट्ठा कीजिए lived experiences से. क्यों सिर्फ like 2-4 Instagram reels या TikTok videos देखकर, like that doesn't provide you with a full picture. वो videos देखेंगे तो सबको लगेगा कि वो ऑटिस्टिक है.
और मैं ये बोलना चाहूंगी कि सोशल मीडिया इज वेरी यूजफुल एक्चुअली इन दिस जर्नी ऑफ सेल्फ डायग्नोसिस. आप बराबर वो हैंडल फॉलो कीजिए. जैसे इंडिया ऑटिज्म सेंटर में भी कितने लोग शेयर करते हैं अपने एक्सपीरियंसेस, सब कुछ पढ़े, बट डोंट जंप टू अ कंक्लूजन. टेक स्टॉक, सी, go back, think about it and maintain a log. Actually, if at all, अगर आपको फ्यूचर में कभी भी आपने सोचा कि मुझे सच में प्रोफेशनली अभी डायग्नोज्ड होना है, ये सब रिकॉर्ड आपको हेल्प करेंगे. बट सेल्फ
Absolutely.
डायग्नोसिस कैन नॉट बी मैंने एक रेडिट का थ्रेड पढ़ा और मैंने 2 रील देखे और
हाँ,
मैंने एक ब्लॉग पढ़ा और बस मैंने कल से
agreed.
डिक्लेयर कर दिया कि मैं ऑटिस्टिक
You
हूँ.
have to do research. You can read research papers. It'll also give you an idea कि अब तक क्यों नहीं diagnose हुई मैं, क्या research में क्या developments हुए हैं.
और ये
So
टाइम
do
भी
your
वेरी
thorough.
करेगा.
Yeah,
ये सबके लिए सेम टाइम में
yeah,
आपको ये समझ में आ जाएगा, ऐसी बात नहीं हो. इंस्टेंट
बिल्कुल.
तो वो हो ही नहीं सकता. अगर
हाँ,
इंस्टेंट करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं फिर वैसे डायग्नोसिस से बचे क्योंकि
yeah.
दैट्स नॉट गोइंग टू हेल्प यू.
Agreed. Hi. Today we are going to talk about what it was like to come to terms with the fact that we are autistic, what led to that realization, how we went from getting a self diagnosis to a professional diagnosis, and how that has sort of changed our lives. So I'll start with my journey first. Um, my parents took me to a therapist and a psychiatrist for the first time when I was 15. I've been dealing with suicidal tendencies since I was, I think, 12. And when my parents saw the scars of self harm on my hand, they felt it was time to, seek help from a mental health professional. But they diagnosed me with depression and gave me a gray colored pill. I don't even remember its name. That used to make me fall asleep in classes.
But they didn't pry into this self harm bit at all.
They did not.
Okay.
I mean, they would have asked me some questions, but I mean, I don't know, maybe even I didn't have the vocabulary to express what was really happening with me.
Mm.
And as you know, mental health professionals in India, like when they see you don't look a certain way, they are not going to ask questions about autism or ADHD. Um, so, whatever, I stopped seeing these doctors because the medicines weren't really helping me. Then, when I was in college, I started seeing a different therapist. Even then, I was in therapy for depression and anxiety. That continued when I started working and started seeing a different therapist. But when I started working is when I actually started understanding my issues better. And I remember like really, really struggling at work. And one day I came across an article which talked about invisible disabilities. And it was a first person article. A woman was talking about what it's like to live with invisible disabilities in India. And I could relate to that article so much. And I'd never heard of this term invisible disabilities before. So I went and I looked it up. I started understanding what invisible disabilities are. And that's how I came across ADHD. And I was seeing a therapist at the time. During my very next session, I brought it up with her and said, hey, I was reading about ADHD and I could relate to all of the symptoms. And then she spared all of like, say, 5 minutes to sort of tell me that I'm just overthinking. And that was it. I thought that, okay, there is some like intrinsic problem with me and I'm just trying to find excuses. But during that process, I had also come across autism and related a fair bit with it. But in my own head, I was like, oh, but I'm nothing like how Shah Rukh Khan was and my name is Khan, so I can't be autistic. I'm clearly like trying to find an excuse. But obviously, things started getting worse, and I burnt out very, very severely. Couldn't work for 6 months, incurred a lot of debt living in Bombay.
But did you like all of this was happening while you were working, right?
Yeah.
So what would a day look like when you were in the stage of
Mhm.
burnout and you had to go to work? How was it all showing up for you?
It was showing up in the fact that my ADHD symptoms had gotten much, much worse because constantly being in an office environment, constantly being around people, constantly hearing the chatter of people's voices, the sound of them walking, the sound of people breathing, the smell of like random food that people would just bring to office to share with their colleagues, like everything was just overwhelming me. And you also had to mask all the time, right? Like having these conversations with people where you had to seem very present even though I'm processing things at a much slower pace, and it just everything just made me feel like I couldn't go on anymore. Like
So you were exhausted.
I was exhausted and extremely suicidal at that point.
Okay.
And then I had to take a break. And for the next 6 months, I barely got out of bed and like did any little bit of work. Like I was freelancing in that time. So every once in a while I do like work, but it was very little. And I was just struggling so badly. And then I got a job at the Swaddle. And while I was working there, at this time, I had again started researching about autism and ADHD because, like whatever I had read, and now that I was understanding my struggles more, it was all coming back to me. And during this time, a person had pitched an article to the Swaddle about her self diagnosis. And I remember reading that article. It was a Sunday morning. This was during COVID. I was seated on my bed reading this, and Dhruv enters the room, my partner, and I just have like silent tears flowing down my cheeks. Like it was so relatable.
Finally, the light bulb.
Yeah, like
Hmm.
everything she had mentioned, like her experiences with doctors, how they had invalidated her. And the name of this article was I self-diagnosed myself with autism because nobody else was giving me a diagnosis. And that hit so hard. And I think that sort of propelled me to start researching more, like look for like an actual professional diagnosis. And that's how like the journey was for me, like if I had to sum it up. What?
It is
Hmm.
so like I'm just feeling like I'm actually looking at my life through your lens, because right from when I was maybe I was in class 7 or 8, I could feel that there was something very different about me, and mostly I felt that I was almost starring in a movie, because I would look at my life inside out,
I agree.
and that I would
Yeah.
I would feel that, okay, I have to just play out this role, and I have to observe people around me, and then kind of tinker my behavior as per that. All this served me pretty well till I was maybe in class 10.
Hmm.
Then, with some bullying in school and some other incidents that were happening in life, I became extremely suicidal. But I didn't have the courage to tell anyone, so I never got any professional help. And I tricked myself into believing that it will all go away with time. All that changed from when I finished school to till I joined college. I thought I'll get a fresh start with everything in life. Like, it's a new chapter of
Yeah.
my life anyway, so I'll just do it brand new. In that process, what I started to do was, I would overexert myself to prove a point to God only knows who, that everything is okay with me, I'm at the top of my game, and I'm just focused on getting good grades, securing a good job, having a good life, and all of that. And I lived this delusion till college got over, joined work, and it all came crashing, I would say, all together.
Hmm.
Because when I started working, suddenly I realized that, again, there was something that I just didn't know. There was an unwritten code or
Yeah.
an unwritten rule book that I was never given. So
Yeah.
whatever I was doing at work, it always felt that, not just in terms of the work that I was doing, but just how I was interacting with people, how people were interacting with me, what my seniors thought of me. All of that started going a little south, and I would be constantly told that I'm not very committed, I'm not very focused, or I kind of daydream, I don't take deadlines seriously. And again, I went into that whole cycle of, first I beat myself up, and I
Hmm.
thought that this is a, I am the problem, it's me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I need to buck up, I need to change. And eventually I reached this stage where I had a full breakdown at work. I was in the middle of a very important assignment. Not only did I completely mess up the
Hmm.
assignment, I didn't have the courage to also stay back and fix it, because by then I just felt that I'm
Hmm.
incapable of doing this anymore. That was the break that I took. And for the
Hmm.
first time ever, I actually reached out to a psychiatrist, and I was like,
Hmm.
something is really wrong with me, and it has been wrong for a very long time. Like,
Hmm.
I can tell you, when I was 14 years old, I was
Yeah.
thinking this, but I have just been very confident that I will be able to outgrow it.
Hmm.
But initially, what happened was, I got that label of depression and anxiety very quickly. Almost within
Yeah.
5 minutes, they were like, हाँ ये depression है, lifestyle issues, this, that, and here's some medication, meditate, exercise, things will be better.
I think women particularly are very quickly given the tag of depression and anxiety.
Yeah, because as soon as I went in
Yeah.
and the person took my history, and I meant, at that point of time, I had just gotten married, like 3 months. So it was all as if, oh, you got married and you are working. Uh, you are just, you're just anxious. You just need to get a grip on things. And
Women
even
still have feelings, right?
yeah,
So,
and I really believe that that
Hmm.
was the problem with me, that I'm unable to manage expectations around, and that is what is leading to all of this. Initially, I was like, okay, I will take the medication, I'll go to therapy, and I will overcome it. But with time, I realized that all that was happening was my physical symptoms were going. So, yes, I would be a little less exhausted, or I would be able to sleep. But I had this constant dialogue in my mind which would never stop, and which would tell me that, still, don't you feel like, you are a misfit? Somehow I always felt like I was an alien. Somebody had just transported me to this world. I don't understand much of it. I happen to speak the same language as them, thankfully, but still there's so much of miscommunication. And I was having these fights with everyone in my life. Like, they were different fights, but it was all happening because I felt that I'm letting them down, and they were also feeling that I was really letting them down. So with my husband, with my parents, everything was in Bengali there's a word called damadol. It was I felt like suddenly my life was inside like a washing machine. It was just spinning, and there was no control. Then at a certain stage, someone told me that you could be bipolar, because you've had a good run. Like, when you were in college, you held a job. Those were the good years. Maybe those were your manic years, and now this is your depressive phase. And I think I'm also very, because I was so desperate for an answer, I was like, okay, yeah, maybe you're making sense, maybe this is bipolar.
Actually,
And
the symptoms of bipolar, like with the manic depression, and then the very like depressed phase that happens, sort of mimics like ADHD's hyperfocus times and times when you have no energy.
yeah,
And
yeah.
because there's this perception that ADHD people look a certain way,
Hmm.
that the diagnosis of bipolar comes in very quickly. That, and also borderline personality disorder and
Oh,
OCD. I have met
okay.
women who
Okay.
are autistic but were previously misdiagnosed with borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, OCD, and just like a bunch of other personality
So
disorders.
everything except what
Everything
the
except autism and ADHD, because they have a certain look in people's minds.
So with the bipolar thing, I started reading up, and I could relate to some of it. And I still believed the doctor. And I went on medication, and I again, once again, I was like, maybe this is the answer that I am finally getting. And things will now look up. But I was probably what, 30 at the time. And even with the medication and all, it always felt that I'm still not able to really, get my bearings, because there was still a part of the puzzle that continued to be missing. Like, there was overall, somebody had given me all the answers, but there was that one critical piece which is, holding it all together, which was not coming through.
I relate to that a lot. Not that I was put in medication on medication other than the one I was prescribed at 15, but even with all the therapy sessions I attended, I just felt like it would work for the first couple of weeks, and then it would just stop working, because ultimately nobody was addressing like the issues that are underneath. They were just treating me for anxiety and depression, which are manifestations of living with autism and ADHD for so long, living with a disability but not knowing it, and as a result, developing mental illnesses.
And with me, what was happening was, because I would also feel that stuff would not work after
Yeah.
a few weeks or few months, I would change my therapist. Now, I would change my psychiatrist, because I would think that the problem is not getting the right professional to talk to me. So I would be, I would really convince myself that there was a possibility that maybe I am not being completely transparent about my symptoms and what I feel, or B, the person who is listening to all of this is just not getting it right. So this went on, and at some point I got so exhausted by just this, and you have to, when you are at a certain age, like as a kid, when you fall sick, your parents take you to the doctor, they do the talking, they look at the prescription, they take care of everything. But as an adult, you have to do all of it,
Yeah.
and like also adult. So I got so fed up of this catering to my medical needs, so as to say, that I was like, okay, I think I'm going to lead the rest of my life as knowing that something is wrong with me, and I just feel so weird, like an oddball at all times. I'm extremely awkward. There's so much happening inside me that I can't explain, but I will not have an answer.
It's a very lonely feeling
It's
also.
extreme.
Yeah.
It was alienating. It was as if, like, I have a life, but I don't really know how to lead the life.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm just going to be confused, and I'm just going
can't
to
explain what is going on with two people because there's no vocabulary
I
also.
know, even if I explain, I would say, oh, I'm exhausted. And then the response is sleep a little more,
Yeah.
exercise a little more. Are
Eat
you
healthier
eating healthy?
food. Yeah.
Is it a vitamin deficiency? While, yes, some of those do play a role,
Absolutely.
I struggle to explain to them that, no matter what I do, it's an internal feeling that, you are a misfit. That
Yeah.
you just don't understand, what people around you are doing, what they're supposed to, how are you supposed to react to situations, how are you supposed to handle them. So I had given up. I had literally given up. I convinced myself that life is just going to look like this.
You know,
And
what you said actually brings up something like you can't healthy eat your way out of autism. You can't exercise your way out of autism.
that's not
Like a
possible for
lot,
anything, I
yeah, you
believe.
can't
Yeah.
therapize your way out of autism. Like a lot of people, even like professionals, will tell you to eat healthy, and like gut issues, if you address, they can be a solution to autism, and your gut brain axis will be healed. There was a documentary which said that, but this actually goes on to show how untrue
But this
that
I
is.
even felt when I was being just treated for the first labels of depression and anxiety. The stuff that is suggested to you, it also presupposes that you are in a certain state of mind
Yeah.
to be able to eat healthy, to be able to maintain a consistent exercise schedule, to be able to sleep on time. When your bare minimum energy is missing, you just feel like a corpse
Yeah.
all day long. It doesn't matter how much you want to exercise or how much you want to eat healthy.
Yeah.
Because I've had times that I want all of it, but all I'm capable of is reaching for a tub of ice cream in the first thing in the morning.
The executive functioning is not there. So
Yeah, it was missing. It was just, so that's why it all feels now. Looking back, it feels like I was living in a blur. Like I was somehow trying to, like what you said, an autopilot, exhausted, and not
Yeah.
really knowing what I'm doing. Then, in fact, or I had no idea about the word autism. I used to, for me, it was like, okay, when I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety, I was like, okay, I can't even tell anyone in the family because आप बोलेंगे पागल हो गई है, or you're overthinking it, and too much of influence of media, TV, etc., etc. So, in fact, the first time I heard the word autism was when I was talking to you, because you had reached out to me for some other work. And after that, I completely, I opened up about my struggles, because this was also during COVID, I think. I was telling you how I've been feeling in general. And later, you just asked me to look it up and see if, something resonated.
And Shravani, the interview, I remember what it was for. It was for an article where I was writing about how working from home has made it easier for a lot of people to actually get work done.
Yes.
And I remember hearing like your answers to my questions. That was a 10-minute voice note. And again, at the end of that, I was crying. I was like, oh my God, it's like somebody is telling me of like my own experiences, but like another person is going through that. And that made me feel so much less lonelier in my experience.
But it's so funny, while you felt this listening to the
Yeah.
voice note, when you told me to look it up, I was scared
Hmm.
because I thought that initially, even without knowing what autism is, I told myself, no, I can't be autistic. It's not possible. Like, I've held a job, I finished school, I have a husband. It's just not possible. Like, I watch movies, very
Yeah.
very basic explanations I started providing myself. Then I remember, like, one day I was like, no, acha, let us see what it is, because like I said, I was completely, this word has never existed in my vocabulary. And at that time I was getting familiar with a lot of mental health terms which I anyway did not know earlier. When I started reading, first I read, the scientific definitions, things that you get like Google search, WebMed and all. And that was a little too much. And I didn't really, I was like, this is too, this is too pedantic. This is not going to make sense. Or it's not really, I'm not even understanding what it is. So how can I even consider whether I'm autistic or not? Then I discovered Reddit. And I went through the dedicated subreddits of autism, autism in women, autism translated, like all the different variations. And I just started reading posts where, people were describing their experiences
with the same symptoms.
It was like I was reading my own story, that I was in this very high paying, high stressful job for X number of years. Suddenly I am burnt out beyond help and I possibly can't recover. And I have always felt very weird, as even as a child, that life was going on okay, and now it's like a house of cards. It's completely collapsed. That gave me some confidence. I think then I started taking this a little more seriously. I was like, maybe Devrupa has a, maybe this is a direction that I can explore. And to be honest, I was so, it took me so much more time to even get myself ready to accept that, this is a path that I want to explore. Because I would read up all of this and then be like, no, I'm overthinking this. I cannot be autistic. This is just whatever happenstance. But finally, I think I was just so I really wanted my life to start making sense to me. So and that was nice. Like, the expectation had gone from getting life in control, in order, to just letting life make sense to me. As long as I had some answer to why I thought, acted, spoke the way I did, I was happy. And I reached out to Action for Autism, and the process was, there was an interview, there was a questionnaire that my partner had to fill. They even wanted someone who has seen me in like my developmental years, like first 5 years of life, to speak about how I was as a kid. But this is what I'm saying. See, this is I'm not somebody who is, facing a mental health professional for the first time. I have clearly been to psychiatrists. I was in therapy. I was on antidepressants. I couldn't gather the courage to tell my parents that I was getting this diagnosis, possibly that I may be autistic. So again, I embellished the whole situation and I said, again, I have changed my therapist, but this therapist wants to know something about my childhood. So kindly speak to that person. And the person from Action for Autism, I told them that this is what I have done because I don't have the courage right now. So pretend that you are just a therapist. Do not bring up anything about the diagnosis. When the interview, my interview and the questionnaire and everything was over, and when I was filling up the questionnaire, so many things that I've been dying to tell people, that these awkward things that I have done, but I've just never had the courage to tell anyone that this is how I operate in life. I could give examples because they, the questions would be like, have you done this? And if so, can you like give some examples? And I wrote such detailed things. Like, one I really stands out for me is that if I become too conscious of what I'm going to say, then the other person, I can like 9 on 10, they misunderstand me. Because, I would, and I've heard this since I was a child, that you make up your story so well, you sound so defensive that, what you say, nobody's going to take you seriously. So I thought, okay, then maybe the answer to this is that I just need to say whatever comes to my mind. So in that process, I have I've called elders you're sitting like thieves in the house. I meant something else, but at that point, those were the words that occurred and it would all come out. And then I got a big bashing from my parents. And I said, but you said to not think and prepare so much and just say, go with the flow. And I just did that. So it was such a eureka moment for me that I felt so good that I was able to give these examples, talk about these rabbit holes that I enter. If I have to learn about, if I come across anything interesting, say, I'm very fascinated with textile. It's not enough for me to just know the names. I would go down this hole, I would read up, know, constantly share that information with people to the extent that people around me are getting tired of me speaking about it. So all of these examples I was finally able to provide that, these things happen. And even during the interview, I would constantly digress. I would start on one point, end up somewhere, bring back I would be then asked to come back to that. And I think it is only when the process started that I think maybe 30% of me was comfortable with the idea that I'm actually exploring that, whether possibly I'm on spectrum or not. So it is not that I read those experiences on Reddit and I did my research, I spoke to you, but there was still that, and I chalk it up to my ableist brain that kept telling me that, it's not the right thing.
Just
So I
making
couldn't,
excuses.
I couldn't fully accept it. So even through the diagnosis process, I was saying all of this. I would feel so relieved to be able to share it. But there was a voice at the back of my mind that what if I'm overplaying my symptoms? I'm pretending to be autistic to get this. Finally, the day when I got my report, and I had a call with the person who had done the whole process and the questions. And when they say that we have reached this conclusion and yes, you are on the spectrum. My first words of my mouth were, but are you sure? So they were like, yes, and you need to also, now I think it's, because I would keep telling them that I'm saying all of this to you, but I don't know if I'm, randomly now trying to connect the dots or if these things are going to make sense. So during that last call, when they said it and I finally looked at the report, I think that 30% became somewhere of 50%. I was like, acha, theek hai, a professional has said it. So yes, it was no longer a scary term for me. But when I got diagnosed, I don't think that I was, I treated it just like a label, like I was treating depression and anxiety. I never thought beyond it. And I would say from 2021 to present day, it has taken me, and I understand this is going to be a work in progress, to actually lead my life like an autistic person. Because the mistake that I made initially after my diagnosis was because I treated it as a label. I thought that I can, if not overcome it, I can fix it. I can fix some of my autistic issues to be, so that I can seamlessly go on with life. And so much of self-reflection and therapy it has taken me to now realize that the goal for me is no longer to fit in. It is to 100% accept that I am this awkward person with some weird mannerisms and a very different way in which my brain operates, and to own that self and to really live by that, to live as an autistic person. So I became more comfortable in, the fact that I can't maintain eye contact with anyone. Earlier, I would force myself, look at everyone all the time. But now I look wherever I feel like. I fidget, I constantly digress, and it never felt like, these were shortcomings. I started treating them as these are like these special features that I come equipped with. And this is just, like if you give me something to do, whether or not I will finish it on time continues to be a question mark. And I'm very candid about it. But when I give it to you, I can guarantee you that I would have thought of something in some angle that you may not have otherwise thought of, which I really consider a strength of my
Absolutely.
autistic brain,
Yeah.
because I can, I can like take a thought and like go into different directions. But instead of beating myself up for being a tardy person that who doesn't meet all deadlines, who doesn't always show up on time, because my sense of timing is also very poor,
Yeah.
I was like, this is what I bring instead. Like, this is what you get when you interact with the autistic Shayuni. And if you are so fussed about having everything prim and proper, then you're not going to get the autistic Shayuni. Like, the
Yeah.
autistic Shayuni comes with certain settings, and that is what makes me different and unique.
Yeah, makes you who you are.
Yeah, so I think this diagnosis journey for me was so much about, if we keep aside the procedural part of it, it was a big lesson in self reflection, because I think neurotypical, neurodivergent, everybody is always struggling with this sense of self, who you are and what is your purpose. But to be able to actually accept that in no way can you ever think or react like the most neurotypical person that you know.
Yeah.
It sounds very easy, but it is not, because I was conditioned from childhood to behave like others, go out and play, make friends, be like that elder brother, vague things that never made sense, constantly beating myself up to be like them, to be this very gregarious social person. And at the cost of what? I would come back home and collapse. And so you can do, like, I could still socialize with two people, but then I will constantly get exhausted. So then the expectation becomes, why can you only socialize with two people? You're a woman, now you're married. Why are you not entertaining more people? Why are you not having people
You should be able
over?
to bind the family
Yeah, and
together.
you should be like, you should be more like upbeat about things. Had I not known, and had I not accepted, like truly accepted and really, like, hugged my autistic self, that diagnosis would not have meant much, because it's just not enough to know that I'm autistic. I also need to structure my life as an autistic person.
Yeah.
So now if I tell someone that, if I am going here, I will socialize for 2 days, and then I need one full day as my downtime, I don't care what the other person is saying.
Yeah, it's
Because-
just something you need, because you can't function otherwise. Like,
that, I think, for me, diagnosis has just not been hearing those words. Diagnosis, like I keep saying, it's a journey in self acceptance. And to anyone who is looking to get diagnosed, it should not be just to know whether you are on the spectrum or not. It's just not a label. It's not for the, that you can just use a hashtag, or you can join some WhatsApp community. It is for you to finally, just when you sit alone, you're like, now this makes sense. Why do I operate like this? And slowly come, make peace with that self. Because from my experience, I know that it was not an overnight process. It's not that today
takes a
someone
long
told me
time.
autistic, that I'm autistic, and from tomorrow I was suddenly like, yes, I'm autistic. I would constantly even fluctuate, and the ableist things that I have been conditioned to believe for so long, and I have lived my life as per that conditioning, would rear its ugly head.
Yeah,
And I would constantly feel that I'm letting myself down, even after, say, a professional has told me that I'm
I
autistic.
agree. And this internalized ableism thing that you brought up, it is something I still struggle with. And I think every new year, like, this is one of my resolutions, that I'll be like less ableist towards myself, and that I'll be more accepting of myself. And I think this acceptance also like came in gradually for me, because the first time I researched about autism and I had that idea that, oh, but I'm nothing like Shah Rukh Khan from My Name is Khan, happened in 2018. And it's only towards the end of 2020 that I accepted my self-diagnosis. And I mean, self-diagnosis again is absolutely valid. However, it can't just be based on, a couple of TikTok videos or a couple of
Yes.
Instagram reels.
Yes.
It has to be very well researched.
In fact, I speak a lot about my experiences as an
Hmm.
autistic person on Twitter. And a lot of times people are, they'll either comment or they will send me a DM and just give, one instance, that
Hmm.
incident that matches the experience that I shared. And then ask me that, oh, do you think I'm autistic? And I'm like, firstly, I'm not qualified to
Yeah.
tell you. Secondly, do not look at it like this. Like, I think self-diagnosis, it gets such a bad rep in the
Hmm.
medical community, especially in the mental illness and the neurodivergent space, because I think people sometimes rush to get a label to just flaunt it.
Yeah.
But the idea should not be to find out whether you are neurodivergent, autistic, you have ADHD, you have both, you have dyscalculia, whatever it may be. It should not be just for the sake of having that label with you. It is to know yourself better, to know
Yeah.
what are your boundaries, to know how you operate and navigate in life.
Yeah.
Which is why I think whenever there is a debate on self-diagnosis, I am all for anything that, say, even if you have fever, at some point to its self-diagnosis, you will notice that, okay, you are not feeling okay, you are
Yeah.
fatigued, you say you have loose motions, so you're going to report those symptoms.
Yeah.
And a doctor will tell you that, okay, what kind of illness this is, because that is not a diagnosis you can arrive at, or if it requires medication, you cannot self-medicate.
Yeah.
But everything that's happening in your body, of course, it's self-diagnosis, because
Yeah.
you know what, how your brain operates, how you think, what's your thought process. The fact that when I have to go to a restaurant, I have to religiously check out all pictures of the interiors. I have to go through the menu.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to just know. This constant need to know. If I didn't even know this and connect the dot, what will I tell during the interview that, I have this constant, this insatiable need to know and control.
Yeah.
So I think that's why self-diagnosis should not be looked at that, like you said, don't watch a few reels, or
Yeah.
don't even like listen to two people talking and tomorrow announce you're autistic. If you relate to those experiences, and if you relate more and more and more, it's possible. But don't do it just for the sake of, having this, oh, I can call myself autistic. That
Yeah.
cannot be the end goal.
I agree. It's not a label. It's about understanding yourself better. Like when you just look at it as, a label, as just a diagnosis you've got, and then a lot of times it can become an excuse as opposed to being an explanation.
Yeah.
So if I'm doing something and somebody's like, oh, why are you doing it like this? And then I mention, I mean, a lot of times people will be like, oh, she's still using her autism as an excuse, but it is an explanation. It's a way where I'm telling you that, hey, this is something I'm struggling with. Let's come up with a way where we can do this. Let's change the way we are approaching this problem.
And I think this excuse versus explanation, for me, it also works beautifully in, see, when if I were to just use autism as a label for myself, that okay, today I have a diagnostic report which says that I'm on the spectrum, then things are not happening because of autism. I am doing things because I'm autistic.
Yeah.
There is a difference in these two sentences.
Absolutely.
Although, you may think that acha, conclusion to same hai. No, it's not that, I am, if you ask me how long will this take, and I tell you 20 minutes and then I send it to you 5 hours later, it is not because of my autism. Because I am autistic, I cannot even assess what will take 20 minutes versus what will take 5 hours, which is leading me to even promise you that something will come in 20 minutes, but actually it has taken me 5 hours to complete.
Yeah, and I'm probably being really genuine when I'm saying that, yeah, I will take 20 minutes. I'm really sure it will take 20 minutes. But the problem is, my brain doesn't understand what 20 minutes means. It's just, a thing that I would say.
Definitely. I think after my own journey with the diagnosis and the time since then, my biggest takeaway has been that don't delve into it to get another label, which is also, I think, just the way, the times that we live in. We are very focused on, giving name to everything.
Yeah.
Like everything must have some sort of a name. I should be able to identify exactly why, what is happening. But in when it comes to autism, it shouldn't just be that. It really, if used correctly, it is this wonderful way to understand yourself better.
Yeah.
Like you've never done, and no one will be able to do this exercise for you,
Yeah.
because no one knows what what these experiences are. The fact that I have a constant, like a, even when I'm talking to you right now, there is a voice in my head that is having a conversation with my head at all times. That's this voice that never stops.
Yeah.
And I will not know this, and I will not know how any of this makes me the person I am, unless I'm on that, I truly, like, I don't, the fact that there's this conversation playing in my head, I won't even call it a feature anymore. This is who I am, and this is what it takes to be Shayuni, someone with an autistic brain.
But one thing I would still like to point out is, I mean, yeah, as much as we've become like these people seeking labels and all, there is a certain merit to, like, having these labels, like knowing I am ADHD or knowing I am autistic, because it, at least for me, it gives me a sense of community which I previously lacked and which made me feel like lonelier. Now I know that there are other people who might not be experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing, because no two autistic people or no two ADHD people are the exact same, and everybody's lives are different, everybody's traumas, everything is different. But it still helps me connect. It helps me know that there are my people. I feel like less of an alien in that sense. So I think labels do give that. That this is
Labels
a
are good.
community I
I'm
belong
just,
to.
yes, of course,
Yeah.
that sense of belongingness, especially living with an invisible disability, is so much important. But the point that I'm trying to make is that don't just, finding out that you are autistic is the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
If you don't then start digging and understanding what it means to be you, the autistic person, because like you say, no two autistic people are the same. So it cannot just be I read some experiences, I self-diagnose, let's say I also get a formal diagnosis, and that is the end of the story. It's really the beginning of the story. And if your end goal is just to get that end of the story, I am autistic, like that's what I mean. I think that intention has to be also clear, that yes, you want to find out you're autistic in order to belong to a community, and therefore I'm not saying labels are bad.
Yeah.
I'm just saying that don't think that is the full stop. That is literally the beginning.
And I think, like, after going through like the entire diagnostic process, which can be quite intensive because you are sort of re-looking at everything from your childhood, and it's like you've just like looked at things from a different perspective until now, and you're suddenly getting like the true perspective, so to speak. But when that process ends, like the diagnostic process ends and you have your diagnosis, I think what followed, at least for me, was a severe identity crisis. And I think I'm still in the middle of it.
I so relate to this.
Yeah, because you masked so much through your life.
You don't know which is...
Yeah, you created so many personalities to cater to different people that you don't know who the real you is. And now that you're learning all of this, you're like, oh, wait, but who am I really? And then the rest of your life has to be coming to terms with who you are, really accepting yourself. Like, it might feel like radical acceptance because, I mean, a lot of basic things we call radical today. But yeah, it's just like your work begins there to a certain extent.
That's exactly what I'm saying. The diagnosis is not the end of the thing. It's treated as like starting your life. I won't even call it afresh. It is to finally realize what are your needs.
Clicking a reset button.
Yeah, and kind of, lead your life as per those needs that you have. What is it that you can do? What is it that you can't do? Instead of forcing yourself to, like you said, like, we make up so many personalities to cater to all the expectations that people have from us, without knowing that this is all that we can do on a given day. More than this is just not possible.
Like, I realized I didn't even know my likes and dislikes to a great extent. Like, I had to, like, investigate everything. Okay, do I really like this, or did I say I liked it because that was the thing I thought I was supposed to be?
And it's so interesting, I think, especially like when girls in India are growing up, there's obviously a difference in which boys and girls are brought up.
Yeah.
And girls are always taught from a very young age to, be more accommodating.
Yeah.
To be, more, thoda adjust kar lo all the time. That's
Yeah.
all that you keep
Most
hearing.
of my female friends are people pleasers.
I think, yes,
Because
so
of
that so you already have,
Hmm.
as a girl, I'm growing up and I'm being told that you need
Hmm.
to please people. I also have an autistic brain which is very scared of the environment around, because I'm confused what a person really wants from me, and I'm constantly worried, am I letting you down, are you angry with me, I'm like trying to, like, read your mind. This is a double whammy almost.
Yeah.
And all of these little, like, I have had so many eureka moments after my diagnosis that it 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 has just, I have become this fierce believer that diagnosis is, if you think that diagnosis is, wow, sigh of relief, yes, sigh of relief,
Yes,
but
but not
so
the-
much work
yeah.
is coming your way.
Absolutely.